Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, August 19th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. A presidential visit today along the border. This one by the president of Mexico, who came to alleviate concerns over a recent rash of chaos and violence and to try and keep it from happening again this weekend. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado with more on the message.
Bueno, nos da mucho gusto estar en Tijuana.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, or AMLO, opened his Friday news conference in Tijuana with a lot of compliments, support, and love for the people of Baja California and their governor.
Amor con amor se paga. Queremos mucho a la gente de Baja California.
But it didn't take long for him to talk about the wave of crime throughout the border state that caused fear and panic last weekend. Cartels went on a rampage, burning dozens of cars, some businesses, creating blockades and telling people to stay home, essentially shutting down the busiest border crossing in the U.S.
Que no está sola, que el gobierno federal la va a apoyar siempre. Ahora que se presentaron estos hechos lamentables.
While his trip was pre-scheduled, AMLO said he came to tell Governor Marina del Pilar she's not alone and called the events regrettable. He also said she immediately received support from their Defense Department.
Siempre vamos a estar junto a ella para apoyar al pueblo de Baja California.
When the governor took the podium, she welcomed the president and addressed the violence.
Hace una semana, algunos cobardes quisieron asustarnos y se toparon con un brazo poderoso. Se encontraron con un pueblo uniformado.
Saying a week ago, cowards tried to scare us, but they encountered a powerful arm of the uniformed forces and people who stood united. She also blamed political opponents who took advantage of the chaos by spreading fake news to sow fear and uncertainty, but she said they failed too. During the question and answer session, the president called the weekend of chaos propaganda by both the cartels and his political opponents.
De lo que no tengo duda es de que hubo propaganda por parte de los grupos que llevaron a cabo estas acciones del crimen organizado.
Veteran journalist Vicente Calderón of TijuanaPress.com was born and raised in the border city and has covered it for over 3 decades. He says this was a missed opportunity for the president to give a new message for a community that is used to crime but felt something different this last weekend.
I was disappointed because he basically said the same things that he has been saying from the beginning about these incidents. This is that public displays of power in an effort to make his administrations look bad.
Calderón worries that the president is sticking to what many see as a failed policy towards organized crime.
You don't see many people confident on the hugs, not bullets policy is working against organized crime.
You know, he has that slogan, abrazos, no balazos, hugs, not bullets, when he comes to talking about narco-traffickers and the cartels.
Congressman Juan Vargas represents a district that hugs the border. He says he's among those who are not confident in the president's policy, and it's time to take a tough stance.
It's a horrible tragedy, and I have to say, I put a lot of the blame right at the feet of the president, AMLO.
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
Efforts are underway to mark the anniversary of Friendship Park. Tension over the landmark has been heightened since the binational site was closed on the U.S. side. KPBS reporter Tanya Thorne with more on the celebration planned.
Friends of Friendship Park announced a lineup of events happening this weekend to celebrate the 51st anniversary of the park's inauguration. Workshops on native plants, a kumeyaay ceremony, and a free concert from guitarist Javier Batiz will be held on Saturday from 1 to 5 p.m. on the Mexico side of Friendship Park. But celebrations on the U.S. side will look much different.
Well, there will be this large public concert, free and open to the public on the Mexican side. Sadly, the U.S. side of Friendship Park remains closed.
John Fanisil with Friends of Friendship Park says San Diego's Border Patrol hasn't granted public access to the park since February of 2020, citing staffing shortages. To lament the closure, Fanisil says an art installation will take place on the U.S. side of the park.
We'll be hosting an installation of empty chairs on California State Park property, which is outside of the strip of federal land that we know as Friendship Park.
150 empty chairs with messages from supporters will be displayed from 3 to 5 p.m. Saturday. Fanisil hopes the contrast of the celebrations will send a message.
We often say there's a huge party on the Mexican side at Friendship Park, a perpetual fiesta, and someday, we feel the people here in the United States, we should be able to join the party.
Fanisil also gave the dates for a stakeholder summit to gather community input for the design of Friendship Park. This summit comes after Customs and Border Patrol put a pause on construction that included 2 30-foot tall walls.
CBP Commissioner Chris Magnus said the purpose of the pause was to engage in conversation with the community. Well, we're convening the community.
The stakeholder summit will be held on September 9th and 10th. CBP officials have not confirmed if they will attend the summit. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
State health officials say they hope to soon see cases of monkeypox start plateauing or going down. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman with the latest on the global outbreak that's infected some 192 San Diegans.
State health leaders are hoping monkeypox infections are beginning to flatten out. At least 2,600 cases have been reported statewide, and there have been 62 hospitalizations with no known deaths.
The vast majority of transmission is happening in men who have sex with men through sexual activity. So persons who are in a setting where they have more sexual partners are more likely to transmit the virus because they're having contact with more people. So this is even though this is being spread through sexual activity, it's not what we would consider a traditional sexually transmitted disease.
State Health Officer Dr. Tomas Aragon says it's not a traditional STD because monkeypox is transmitted through close contact with rashes or lesions. They can be extremely painful and typically develop along with flu-like symptoms. Anyone can get monkeypox, but health officials are working with LGBTQ groups to reach those most at risk. California is also releasing new guidance for those who get the virus. It asks people to avoid close contact and lets them know how they can protect others.
If they can cover up the lesions completely, the lesions have stopped increasing for 48 hours. They don't have a fever, they're feeling well, and they completely covered up, then they can resume normal activities.
Monkeypox vaccine supplies remain strained nationwide. Officials are stretching the supply with injections being done just under the skin. This intradermal method turns 1 dose into 5 and works just as well.
It is the same.
Dr. Francesca Toriani from UC San Diego Health says they've already trained staff and begun using this dose-saving injection method. Toriani says targeted vaccination is key to stopping monkeypox.
Vaccination is really important to do now, not, to delay that, so that we don't have secondary transmissions outside of the high-risk population.
Infections are spreading. At least 3 people in the San Diego cases have identified as being homeless. Toriani says she doubts that we've reached the peak locally since we started detecting cases later than others. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
No school year in the U.S. in nearly a decade saw as much gunfire as last year. And that's according to a report out today from Everytown for Gun Safety, a nonpartisan group that advocates against gun violence. It shows that between August 1st, 2021 and May 31st of this year, there were 193 incidents of gunfire. No other school year going back to 2013 ever had more than 75 incidents of gunfire. The report's authors say most shootings are preventable by keeping guns secured, locking school doors and gates, and taking care of students in distress. Governor Gavin Newsom announced a $4.7 billion effort to increase access to mental health and substance use support services for young people in California. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayers says the effort looks to address the lack of mental health care that was further exposed by the pandemic.
The Master Plan for Kids' Mental Health is aimed at helping kids and other Californians up to age 25. The plan includes training for 40,000 behavioral health professionals, creating an online platform for mental health assessment and intervention, and a suicide prevention program.
So the idea of how do we get ahead of this? How do we prevent things from getting worse? How do we change the trajectory of kids' lives? That's what I really like about this plan.
Dr. Ben Maxwell is the interim director of child and adolescent psychiatry at Rady Children's Hospital, San Diego.
And even before the pandemic, we were seeing increased rates of anxiety and depression in kids. Some of those reasons that have been thought through are different sorts of stressors that kids experience these days than they did in the past. Things like social media, different sorts of school pressure, athletics, or pressures at home.
The plan also calls for doubling the number of school counselors, with the incentive of helping to pay for their education, according to Newsom.
The last 2 years, there's been a stacking of stress, and that stacking of stress comes from years and years where we've neglected your mental health, where we've neglected investing.
Nationally, kids are reporting symptoms of depression and anxiety at record rates and are considering or attempting suicide at historic levels. Maxwell says the pandemic made matters worse, as people are now experiencing more social isolation than they have in the past.
We know how to make this a better situation. Early identification, early treatment, prevention, these things, we know these work. This gives us the opportunity to put some of those in place here in San Diego County.
The plan would also include hiring 10,000 more school counselors and would offer up to $20,000 scholarships for mental health workers who serve in schools for at least 2 years. Jacob Ayers, KPBS News.
A man from El Cajon has been found guilty of charges related to the January 6th Capitol breach. A jury in D.C. found 34-year-old Eric Herrera guilty of felony obstruction of an official proceeding, as well as 4 misdemeanors. According to the government's evidence, Herrera was among rioters who illegally entered the Capitol. He posted a photograph of himself holding papers inside the Senate parliamentarian's office. The felony charge carries a maximum of 20 years in prison, and Herrera is scheduled to be sentenced in November. A warning tonight from Apple about hackers being able to take control of devices. They're advising some users to update their software immediately. More now from reporter Isabel Rosales.
Update your devices right now. That's Apple's urgent warning after discovering a vulnerability in its operating systems.
What does this all mean?
I mean, among vulnerabilities in the computer world, it's pretty severe. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's an 8 or a 9.
When Roger Grimes, a cybersecurity pro with 3 decades working at companies like McAfee and Microsoft, tells you to pay attention, you listen.
It's a pretty big, severe vulnerability.
At its core, Apple's security flaw could allow a hacker to take full admin access of your iPhone, iPad, and Mac.
They can inject and install more malicious software. They can read your data. They can send, people that you trust. They can send emails and messages and even calls seeming to be from you.
The tech giant says the flaw may have been actively exploited and is present in many products, including iPhones as old as 6S.
How common in the cybersecurity world is it to have a large company such as Apple admit to this type of security flaw?
It's not uncommon. And the reality is that it's always been this way.
Apple is already offering this emergency software update. Grimes warns, don't ignore it.
There will always be some, percentage of people 10-15% of people that will be very late in patching and be susceptible to this.
And in the meantime, be wary of any unusual messages, even from friends, asking you to download or click anything.
It'd be a good practice for everybody to get a healthy culture of skepticism.
Isabel Rosales, KPBS News.
The ribbon has been cut and San Diego State's new Snapdragon Stadium is now open, but not to the public just yet. Today, members of the media were given a sneak peek, including KPBS reporter John Carroll.
If you want to know what $310 million will get you when it comes to a new stadium, well, this is it. SDSU's brand new Snapdragon Stadium.
They'll be in here, get fired up, hyped up, and then they'll take off out the tunnel onto the field.
You can hear the excitement in State's Director of Intercollegiate Athletics, John David Wicker, talking about one of the cool features of the new Snapdragon Stadium. After coming out of these futuristic-looking locker rooms, decked out in SDSU colors, of course, the players will get cheered on by the fans in this area before taking the field.
See the pageantry, get the excitement, feel the energy of our team taking the field.
Even being relatively empty, save members of the media, construction folks, and SDSU staff, you can sense the excitement that seems to be built into this new stadium. The seats and the colors of the home team, the wraparound light displays, the state-of-the-art Jumbotron scoreboards, and the different clubs, one for just about every budget. But if you've got deep pockets...
It's our highest level of suite.
I mean really deep pockets.
At this level, the guests get all-inclusive, so all food, beverage in every event in the building with some limited carve-outs.
These suites require a 15-year commitment, and they run $3.25 million. Snapdragon Stadium is nowhere near the size of Qualcomm. In regular configuration, it seats 35,000 people, but it is expandable to 55,000. The Aztecs will take the Basher Field at Snapdragon Stadium for the first time tomorrow. That's when they'll be doing scrimmage here on the field. The first game, September 3rd. 2 years and 17 days from the day ground was broken on this beautiful new stadium. In Mission Valley, John Carroll, KPBS News.
Several Padres players found themselves in new roles today. They surprised Southwest airline workers and passengers by lending a hand out at the airport this morning. Even after a 5-minute training session, they helped guide a plane to the terminal, even offloaded some baggage. Fans said that they were shocked to see them.
I came in at the other terminal, he came in here, and he was screaming at me on the phone to run down here because they're over here, so I was running on down to see them. Yeah, it's crazy. I didn't know they'd be out here. It's a home game tonight, so I'm like, where are they going?
And a few other Padres also helped check in some passengers and signed a few autographs, among them pitchers Sean Manaea and Nick Martinez, and of course, the Friar.
Well, we are dealing with a little bit of a slight cool down. Not going to be a big dramatic drop, but the heat is backing off just a little bit, and we're going to be on the western fringe of the monsoon through the weekend. Robust monsoon moisture thunderstorms will be heavy into the interior southwest. We could see some spotty thunderstorms into the interior parts of San Diego County, but nothing too widespread on a local scale. You can see, look at all that moisture, mainly east of the Colorado River on the Arizona side, with dry weather prevailing for most of us. But again, there will be a little hint of some moisture bringing spotty thunderstorms to the interior. We'll show you that in a moment. Tonight, increasing clouds for the coastal areas. Low clouds lurk into the morning, and then we'll see some sunshine through the afternoon. Tonight, we cool down to 78 in Borrego Springs. At least we're out of the 80s in the hot spots for the overnight hours. Upper 60s into San Diego and Oceanside. Saturday, still hot into the interior of the San Joaquin Valley, into the Central Valley, but we're going to take a small step down locally in temperature. But look at that monsoon moisture, significant rainfall and some tropical moisture helping to feed the monsoon in the deserts of the southwest. Tomorrow, we fail to hit 100, most likely in Borrego Springs. We're going 99 for your high. Spotty thunderstorms into the interior, a little more likely over the mountains. Some of these will roam down into the valleys, though, too. And on Sunday, it will be warm, but not as hot. And to the east, you can see those spotty thunderstorms continuing through the weekend into the interior southwest. So coastal areas, temperatures hovering around 79 to 80. A little warmer next week as a ridge begins to return to the area. Into the inland areas, we're going to cool to mid-80s for highs on Sunday. Still a warm time. A little more humid than normal. And then we jump back up to near 90 come Tuesday. And as we look at the mountains here, isolated storms on Saturday, a little drier as we move forward in time. And we're going to be warming up into midweek. And into the deserts here, stray thunderstorms around on Saturday. And then temperatures rise back up to around 107 by Tuesday afternoon. I'm meteorologist Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
It's been a long recovery from the pandemic, but San Diego is now as close to full employment as it gets. SDSU's Miro Kopik looks at the numbers in the Friday Business Report.
San Diego unemployment declined to 3.1% from 3.2% in June, which is great news because at the statewide level, unemployment is at 3.9%. Now, what's interesting is that 3.9% is the lowest rate of unemployment in the state of California since they started keeping records. We're right there with Orange County. Orange County was 2.8%, we're 3.1%, but our kind of brethren counties, Imperial County for almost 15% unemployment. They've always been traditionally high, but much higher. LA County 5% and Riverside County 4%. We're really at a full employment cycle, and we can still dip down to about 2.5, 2.6% as we've seen a lot of biotech firms starting up. A lot of those jobs are scientific, professional, and technical. So that shows that the mix of employment is also really interesting. So not only are we regaining all those hospitality jobs, but we're creating, higher wage jobs in very desirable industries that can bring a lot of growth to San Diego.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, a former FBI agent discusses the threats the agency has received since the search of Trump's home. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A series of classic children's books is now finding new life on stage and in the wilderness of East County. The Adventures of Frog and Toad taught many children how to read. KPBS education reporter MG Perez tells us how the beloved characters are continuing their legacy of learning.
This is Frog and Toad, and they are very best friends.
Best friends living in a storybook world.
Frog and Toad live in two different houses, and they always like to do kind things for each other.
A narrator reads to a captive audience at the San Diego Children's Museum in Escondido. Frog and Toad are the main characters in a classic series of children's books by Arnold Lobel. Their adventures were first written in the 1970s and have lived on in our imaginations for decades.
Toad pushed and pulled on the rake. He raked the leaves into a pile. Soon there was not a single leaf in Frog's front yard.
He will come home, he'll scratch his head.
But this is more than just a read-aloud event at the Children's Museum. Young actors from Escondido's Patio Playhouse Community Theater have joined the narrator to bring the beloved characters and their animal friends from the page to the stage. A Year with Frog and Toad became a Broadway musical almost 20 years ago.
I get to relive all my childhood fantasies of eating cookies and laughing at them raking their yard and the leaves all getting blown away.
Christopher Moore is a college music major performing the role of Toad for preview performances around North County.
I hope that it gets a lot more kids into theater so that we can share this amazing experience and gift with a lot more kids.
Frog and Toad live on because their stories are entertaining and educational. The series is used in many classrooms to help students meet social-emotional goals, especially now in the aftermath of COVID and its continuing consequences.
This show is a show full of joy, and it's delightful.
Brenda Townsend is producer of the Patio Playhouse musical and a parent.
Frog and Toad teach us the power of the importance of friendship in our lives. What are we without, our friends? It's a lonely world out there. So they just remind us, I think, that how important friendship is.
I wonder if we are brave, said Frog. Frog and Toad looked into a mirror. We look brave, said Frog.
Chapters of the series are also being read in the wilderness of East County. Simon Breen is education director for Earth Discovery Institute, a nonprofit focused on educating children from marginalized communities about nature, science, and conservation. They've just started a storybook hike in the 2,800-acre Crest Ridge Ecological Reserve, nestled between the outskirts of El Cajon and Alpine.
This story, Dragons and Giants, is about Frog and Toad getting out into nature, overcoming their fears. They have some challenges they encounter with snakes, with just avalanches and all kinds of misadventures.
Children and their families hike from one station to another, reading and reacting along their journey. Breen says this provides lessons in appreciating the environment.
A lot of the kids that we bring out on field trips here to Crest Ridge, it's their first time they've ever been out to this type of nature. Maybe they've been to a local city park, but nothing like this.
The reserve is open to families and other hikers from sunrise to sunset, and the stories of Frog and Toad will be posted through the end of December. There is also a reminder of the reality of climate change. Sarah Masonou is executive director of Earth Discovery Institute.
It's really essential that the public understand what those threats are, understand the importance of nature, and join us in protecting it.
So the singing best friends continue to teach life lessons and bring the community together. The Patio Playhouse production includes performers from ages 7 to 70. Jamie Lynn Palmer brought her 3.5-year-old daughter Lila to the Discovery Museum musical preview performance and is most impressed by the theater kids.
I think it's such a great way for them to expand their courage getting on stage in front of a group of people and really presenting their talents.
Who's your favorite character?
Toads.
Why?
Just because they're so cute.
They're so cute?
Yeah, because they're babies.
Little Lila gets the last word. MG Perez, KPBS News.
And the musical, A Year with Frog and Toad, opens tonight at the Kit Carson Amphitheater in Escondido, and it runs through September 3rd. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating and air, restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.